SpaceX just flew the biggest rocket ever built.
It successfully launched the world's largest and most powerful rocket, but it's what happened next that many are calling an engineering milestone.
And the company it humiliated most wasn't even on the launch pad. Here's how that works. The headline says Starship V3 destroyed Boeing, and that Elon's laughing. And I get the appeal, but if we're being honest, that's not quite what happened. It's actually weirder, and for Boeing, it's arguably worse, because SpaceX didn't beat Boeing in one dramatic clash. It's quietly strangling two completely different Boeing programs at the same time, with math. So let's get the taxonomy right, because this is exactly where the clickbait falls apart. There are two Boeings in this story. The first is the CST-100 Starliner, Boeing's astronaut capsule. And here's the thing most people get wrong. Starliner's real rival isn't Starship at all. It's SpaceX's Crew Dragon, the capsule that's already flying astronauts to the space station on a Falcon 9. The second Boeing is the one that actually squares off against Starship, because Boeing is the prime contractor for the core stage of NASA's giant SLS moon rocket. That's the true heavyweight matchup. And Starship V3 is the vehicle threatening to make SLS obsolete on price alone. But before we crown anybody, let's be honest about Starship itself, because Flight 12 was not a flawless victory. On May 22, 2026, SpaceX launched Starship Flight 12, the debut of the brand new Block 3 design, V3 for short. And it was a split decision. The upper stage, Ship 39, was spectacular. It lost one of its vacuum engines on the way up, and the flight software just shrugged, instantly recomputed the burn on the remaining 5, and hit its trajectory anyway. It deployed its payload, 20 Starlink mass simulators plus 2 real imaging satellites sent up purely to photograph the ship in space, survived a blazing re-entry, through a violent banking maneuver to rehearse the exact path a future ship will fly back to the launch tower and splash down right on target in the Indian Ocean. But the booster, Super Heavy Booster 19, was lost. After separation, it tried to flip around and burn its engines to fly home, couldn't relight the right configuration, fell into an uncontrolled ballistic arc, and slammed hard into the Gulf of Mexico. The FAA declared it a mishap and grounded Flight 13 pending an investigation. So no, this is not a clean sweep. SpaceX broke a booster. The whole story is in what that failure costs and what it buys. Hold that thought, because what they flew is genuinely staggering. The full V3 stack stands 124.4 meters tall. That's 408 feet, taller than a 35-story skyscraper. Fueled up with supercooled methane and oxygen, it weighs about 5,000 metric tons, 11 million pounds sitting on the pad, and it's designed to throw more than 100 tons to orbit, then fly the whole thing back and reuse it. The magic is in the engines, 33 Raptor 3s on the booster alone. And these aren't ordinary engines. They run what's called a full-flow staged combustion cycle, which is a fancy way of saying both the fuel and the oxygen get turned completely into hot, high-pressure gas before they ever reach the main chamber. It's brutally hard to pull off. Only a handful have ever flown. And it squeezes out close to the maximum performance physics will allow. Each Raptor 3 weighs just 1,525 kilograms, about the weight of a compact car, yet produces around 250 tons of thrust and pushes 280 in testing. That's somewhere between 550,000 and 617,000 pounds of force, out of one engine the size of a hatchback. Its combustion chamber runs at 350 bar, about 5,000 pounds per square inch. To picture that pressure, imagine parking a fully loaded Ford F-150 pickup on a surface the size of a postage stamp. That gives a thrust-to-weight ratio near 164, which is basically the bleeding edge of what metal can physically survive. Light all 33 at once and you get about 89.5 meganewtons, 20.1 million pounds of thrust. Let me translate that. It's the combined takeoff thrust of 55 Boeing 747 jumbo jets, all firing at the same instant. The most powerful flying machine humanity has ever built. And yes, the irony of measuring it in 747s is not lost on me. And the design philosophy is ruthless. SpaceX dropped from 4 grid fins to 3, made them 50% bigger, and moved them lower on the body. They even buried the heavy fin motors inside the cryogenic fuel tanks, so the freezing propellant cools the electronics during re-entry, which lets them delete the bulky heat shielding those parts would otherwise need. Every single change serves one goal: fly it back, use it again. Now hold all that next to Boeing's Crew capsule, and the contrast gets brutal. Starliner was supposed to be the dependable, blue-chip answer to SpaceX's upstart. Instead, it became a cautionary tale. The first uncrewed test, back in 2019, was derailed by a software timer bug that burned too much fuel and missed the station. The do-over got grounded for nearly a year in 2021 when valves stuck shut. Florida humidity had reacted with the propellant to form nitric acid and corroded them seized. Elementary chemistry on a multi-billion-dollar spacecraft. Then came the big one. In June 2024, Starliner finally launched with two veteran NASA astronauts, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, on what was supposed to be an 8 to 14-day trip. As it approached the station, 5 thrusters failed and the capsule started leaking helium from multiple points. NASA, still haunted by Challenger and Columbia, decided it was simply too risky to bring the crew home in it. So they sent Starliner back empty in September, and those 2 astronauts didn't return until March 2025, 286 days later, aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon, Boeing's flagship astronauts, rescued by Boeing's cheaper competitor. That image did real, lasting damage. In February 2026, NASA released a 311-page report and classified the flight as a Type A Mishap, the most severe category there is, the one historically reserved for fatal accidents or the loss of a major vehicle. The findings were ugly: propellant vaporizing inside the lines, basically a vapor lock like an overheating car engine, except happening at 17,500 miles an hour in vacuum. Teflon seals literally melting and squeezing out until they choked off the thrusters, and corrosive acid eating components from the inside. The capsule's so-called doghouse pods were cooking their own valves. The money is just as bad, because this is a fixed-price contract. Boeing has to eat the overruns, and its own SEC filings put cumulative Starliner losses past $2 billion, including a $500 million charge in 2024 alone. Then came the punishment. In November 2025, NASA cut Boeing's guaranteed crewed flights from 6 down to 4, and demoted the very next mission to an uncrewed cargo run, forcing Boeing to prove the thing is even safe for humans all over again. But the capsule is only half the story. The real Starship rival is the SLS, and that's where the economics turn almost cartoonish. SLS is powered by 4 RS-25 engines, and these are gorgeous machines, space shuttle heritage, designed in the 1970s to be reused, flown on 135 missions. And on SLS, after 8 minutes of flight, all 4 are deliberately dropped into the ocean. It's the aerospace equivalent of launching a fully staffed hospital into orbit and then intentionally crashing it into the Atlantic 8 minutes after takeoff. And this price tag isn't an estimate, it's audited. NASA's own Inspector General says the agency will spend about $13.1 billion through 2031 just on SLS engines and boosters. Restarting production of cheaper expendable RS-25s pushed the fully burdened cost of a single engine to $146 million. Add the Boeing-built core stage and everything around it, and one SLS launch runs at least $4.2 billion a flight. The auditors flatly called NASA's hope of cutting those costs in half highly unrealistic, and Boeing's new upper stage ballooned from $962 million to nearly $2.8 billion. Now, put the 2 engines side by side. The RS-25 is hand-built and artisanal on a cost-plus contract, the kind where delays and overruns can actually grow the contractor's revenue. The Raptor 3 is built like a car, roughly 1 engine a day rolling off the line in Texas. Even at a generous $1 million apiece, a full 33-engine booster cluster costs about $33 million. So here's the simile that defines this entire race. One single thrown-away RS-25 at $146 million costs more than 4 entire 33-engine Raptor clusters combined. For the price of just the 4 engines Boeing dumps in the ocean on one SLS flight, you could buy the engine sets for over 17 super heavy boosters. And that leads to the single strangest twist in spaceflight right now, what analysts call the Artemis Paradox. Under NASA's current plan, the $4.2 billion SLS launches the Orion crew capsule toward the moon. But Orion can't actually land. It has to meet up in lunar orbit with a separate human landing system. And NASA hired SpaceX to build that using a version of Starship. So the hugely expensive Boeing rocket exists essentially as a taxi, ferrying astronauts up to meet Elon Musk's ship. The legacy rocket literally depends on the commercial vehicle that's outpricing it. If Starship works, the math for keeping SLS alive just collapses. Which brings us to the Elon Laughs part. And this is real, documented stuff, not a meme. Musk has argued for years that throwing rockets away is flatly absurd. He points out that we reuse bicycles, cars, and airplanes, and that it would be insane to throw away a boat after a single trip. His favorite way to frame why you'd even attempt the brutal engineering of recovery: picture a pallet of cash plummeting through the atmosphere, about to burn up. Would you try to save it? Obviously you would. And when SpaceX revealed the finished Raptor 3 in August 2024, Musk wrote on X that simplifying the engine, internalizing the plumbing, building in cooling so it needs no heat shield at all, took a staggering amount of work, and called the result truly a work of art. That obsession with stripping complexity out is the exact opposite of Boeing's path, where intricate, heat-trapping doghouse pods literally cooked their own thrusters in orbit. One company built simplicity that survives a plunge through the atmosphere. The other built complexity that destroyed itself. So let's land this honestly. This isn't really about Boeing's wider business, though that's hurting too. Its defense and space division lost over $5.4 billion in 2024, and a 53-day machinist strike that year bled it further. And it is emphatically not a clean SpaceX victory. Starship V3 lost a booster on Flight 12 and is grounded by the FAA as we speak. Crew Dragon, not Starship, is the real answer to Starliner. Those caveats are real and they matter, but the core verdict survives all of them. Starship didn't destroy Boeing in one fiery clash. What it did is quieter and more final. Mass-produced, sub-million-dollar engines and fully reusable steel rockets have mathematically invalidated the expendable, artisanal, cost-plus model that legacy aerospace ran on for half a century. SpaceX is willing to lose a booster in the Gulf to learn fast. Boeing's fear of failure curdled into paralysis, and billions in losses. The rockets of the past aren't being outflown so much as they're being outpriced, and that's the kind of defeat you can't fix with another test flight.